Are we live? Is this thing on? Hello, Disco Ball Nation. How are you guys doing? I'm joined today by two men who don't need an introduction. By the way, click on the draft button. The draft is ready to rock. So just head over to Drafters website, click on the draft. It's ready to rock. It's full. I'm joined by my good friend, Greg Kellogg. You guys know Greg very well. He's been here, several times on the show. He's a first ballot Hall of Famer, and we're joined by another first ballot Hall of Famer for the Fantasy Football Sports Writer Association. He's also the featured writer at the Rotoballer. He's also a fantasy writer for the Seattle Seahawks, and he's a host of the Sirius XM Radio and the writer for Sportsline. Guys, this man needs no introduction, and I could go on and on and on forever about how incredible and wonderful our guest is here. But ladies and gentlemen, please join myself and Greg in welcoming Scott Engel, the King, to our show tonight. Thank you, Scott, for joining us and queuing up with us and joining us here on Drafters. It's an absolute honor and privilege to draft with you and Greg. And thank you so much for popping by, man.
Yeah, thanks for having me. And you said I don't need any introduction, but if I did, that was a fantastic one. So I appreciate it. Glad to be here representing Rotoballer, Seahawks.com, Sportsline.com. Follow me on social media at Scotty the King. My one question for you is, I've seen a lot of movies, but what movie was that from when they were dancing to I Will Survive?
That's The Replacements. It's one of my all-time favorite.
I don't remember that. I saw that a long time ago.
Yeah, isn't Gene Hackman great? I mean, everything he does. He's not Denzel, but he's good.
He is good. So before we do anything, we need to shout out all the folks from the community who are in here in this draft. Scott, Greg, do you guys have your draft up? You guys see where you guys are drafting?
I am ready. I'm ready on Drafters. This is the $1 Million Best Ball Championship. So how does this work, Andrew? Do we have to beat our league, but if we do overall, we win $1 million?
So it's actually $2.5 million in total prizes. And $500,000 in total. 500,000 goes to first, right? It's best ball format from weeks 1 to 17, and it's total points format. So the way you win is whoever has the most cumulative points at the end of the season with the best ball roster that they've drafted will win the pot or place in the money, depending on how successful that team goes.
What if you win your league that we're drafting?
So even though we're drafting against 11 other people, you're also competing against 180,000 other people. So winning this particular draft doesn't necessarily matter unless everybody's an absolute sharp drafter and places in the money. I think what it comes down to is you want to have, the highest scoring lineup. Greg, you're on the clock, by the way. You want to have the highest scoring lineup against 180,000 plus other people. So it's a really big draft, really big competition. And you're up on the clock at the 109. Let's see what you do. Breece Hall. I like it.
I took a New Jersey Jet.
I love it. I love it. So we got Tipper at the 102. Shout out
to
Tipper.
Gotta go for upside. This is like drafting in high stakes, like the FFPC or FFPC. You got to be aggressive.
Absolutely. 100%. I'm at the 112. Jeez Louise. All right.
You're the first guy to get two players, though.
That's right. You got to start a run.
This is true. All right. So we're going to go Drake London, and we're going to go Jonathan Taylor for our start.
Wow. You're really high on London, huh? Because Garrett Wilson was still on the board and Devontae Adams.
I know. I am much higher on Drake London than I am on Garrett Wilson. I do like Devontae Adams, but I'm trying to get as much exposure and unique roster combinations with Drake London as I possibly can. I do like Drake London. I have him projected as a top receiver. Let's see what you do with your pick here.
Oh, wait, hold on. What's going on here?
You got a pick.
I'm trying to find a player, and he's not there.
What player?
Harrison, was he taken?
Yeah, Harrison was taken.
Oh, damn it, that's not who I wanted.
You took Nico. Yeah, Harrison was taken at the 111. Dang.
I was talking, and then I lost track.
I
wanted Devontae Adams if I didn't get him. We can't back this out in a while.
Hey, I'm up again.
Yeah. Hall of Famer misses his pick. Great start.
Oh, they took Saquon.
You'll pivot. You'll build a beautiful roster. CJ Stroud's great stock later on. And I think he'll be all right. I have Nico Collins very highly projected. So we got Tip Major at the 102. We got Bayou Bengal. Shout out to Bayou Bengal Fantasy Network. He's going live.
Tip Major, yeah.
Yeah, we got Bayou Bengal at 8 p.m. Eastern Time going live doing another Drafters Draft and giveaway. We got Carl Ramrod at the 105. Greg at the 106. I love the 106. We got MVP Jug at the 107. Scott, you're at the 109, and I'm at the 112. So this is a very, very sharp lobby with a lot of sharks. Now, you asked me to put DK Metcalf on the thumbnail.
Yeah.
So I see the Seattle Seahawks fan. I know you're a writer for the Seahawks, and I know you're huge on the Seahawks. But what kind of expectations can the rest of the fantasy world expect from DK Metcalf this upcoming season? We'll start with you, Scott, then we'll go over to you, Greg, and see what kind of projections you guys have for these folks.
I think the floor is going to be high. Floor is mid-range fantasy wide receiver 2, and the ceiling is back-end fantasy wide receiver 1. Average career 16.9 yards per catch last year. And then you consider that the Seahawks defense was on the field so much last year. They were on the field for the most defensive plays, and they ran the fewest offensive plays in the NFL. So that's going to change with McDonald running the defense, Ryan Grubb running the offense. He's going to shoot for more big plays, and I think DK Metcalf's going to have a big year. This team is going to be different this year.
It's very interesting. I certainly have some questions, but I'm very curious as to what Greg has to say based off of his projections on DK Metcalf. How do you think DK is going to do this year?
Well, I don't project individual players, but I do like the change in offensive coordinator. I think the biggest beneficiary is going to be JSN, who in his second year is going to be used downfield a lot. So I'm really looking at thank you, my pick. I didn't know if he would make it to me or not, but I wanted him.
Get your guys.
Yeah, get your guys. Anyway, I think the Seahawks are going to be a much more explosive offense. I don't think Kenny Walker is going to be as good as he was in previous years, because I think Zach is going to get a little bit more third down work.
I'm very curious to see what Scott does here with his pick. Very curious. Travis Etienne, okay, a little bit of a robust RB start. I can't say I hate it. I like it. I like what I'm seeing, guys. Now, my only, I agree with everything you guys said about DK Metcalf. I agree with everything you said about JSN, Greg, as well. My only hesitation in that passing situation, because I love Grubb. I think Grubb is a phenomenal addition. I really, really like Grubb there. My only sorry, I had to make my picks. My only hesitancy is I hate the quarterback situation. I absolutely despise the quarterback situation.
You should love the quarterback.
I don't think there's any reason to be that down on Geno Smith. I mean,
I don't either. And
last year, because the defense, they played from behind a lot, and defenses would pin their ears back and come after him. He was still fourth in deep ball completion percentage, and I believe like 7 in catchable deep ball percentage. I think a lot of people underrate Geno Smith. I don't think he's going to be a top fantasy quarterback, but with those 3 receivers and a new offensive coordinator, I don't think there's any reason to be that down on Geno Smith. I think it was game script related last year. There were injuries on the offensive line. He was playing from behind a lot. That's why he wasn't as good as he was the previous year.
I'm not disagreeing, but I'm just saying, like, as a fantasy football quarterback, he's a tough purchase, especially with as many weapons as he has. Game strip.
Yeah, wait a minute.
I think he's mid-range fantasy quarterback too, and I'd be fine with him as a second in the super flex.
And look at who his backup is if he goes down to injury.
Sam Howell.
That's right. What did Howell do last year? Didn't
Led
he
the league in attempts,
in passes, attempts,
in passing attempts, yeah. In attempts, yeah.
The guy can throw the ball. He can sling it. So it doesn't matter what quarterback you have. The receivers should be fine.
Yeah, I'm more so worried about them being limited by the quarterback decisions and decision making. I love DK Metcalf. I love JSN. I love Tyler Lockett especially. He's got probably the best value in football this year, especially in these best ball tournaments. You can get him in round 8 or 9, which is absolutely incredible. He's as reliable as it comes. In 9 years as a pro, he's missed one game. He's a spike week freak. I absolutely love him. But once again, I don't think either quarterback is going to be, lights out and benefit all of these targets the way we'd like it. I think one person is going to eat. I think one person is going to be absolutely spectacular, but who that's going to be has remained to be seen. If you're a betting man, the best player to bet on, in my opinion, is DK Metcalf, because he has all the cheat code opportunities. But once again, I'm not out on that passing offense. I'm worried. There's a couple red flags for me. That's
I don't see anything that's really wrong with his decision making. I think it was more, there was a lot of pressure on him pass rush wise last year. You know, JSM was just starting to come on. The running game was ranked 28th. There's a lot of reasons. I watch Gino a lot. I don't think decision making is a big issue with him.
Well, only time can tell. I have the humility to make my bet, and if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. I've been wrong before.
Hey, me too. If you're right, I'll give you credit. Right.
By
the way, I'm sorry to interrupt there, but I love getting Calvin Ridley where I just did.
Talk more about that. How do you feel about? Obviously, you love it, but how do you feel about Calvin Ridley this season?
I think I like him a lot because I wasn't surprised. I mean, coming after a year layoff, for him to struggle like he did, and Trevor Lawrence didn't play as well as he could have. Now he goes to Tennessee, where he's going to have a young kid who's not going to hesitate to gun the ball. So, I'm good with it. I'm good with Calvin Ridley. I think he gets a bounce back year. He's also being complimented by Hopkins and Tyler Boyd, so I think it's a nice bounce back year ahead.
I respect that take a lot. I love that take. Greg, sorry, I'm just making my picks. Greg, how are you feeling this year about that man, Calvin Ridley?
I kind of like DeAndre Hopkins still in that offense. So Ridley, I think, will be a wide receiver too for the team, and it all depends on Will Levis. Does he improve? Does he get the second year improvement that you hope to see? And I want to see preseason before I judge that.
Fair enough.
I think Hopkins at his age is starting to trend down, so I prefer Ridley.
I will get exposure to both of them. It's another situation where we haven't seen much from Will Levi, but Will Levi is 100% set up for success, right? Let's see what Scott does here with his pick. Will Levi is set up for success. I love the Anthony Richardson value you just got.
Yeah, there's upside there with Anthony Richardson. If he stays healthy, he could be a top 3 fantasy quarterback this year. But like Robert Griffin III, you have concerns when you take a guy like that, because he's not going to dial himself back, in terms of rushing. And I don't think the Colts want to do that with him either. But now he's got a deep receiving crew because they added Adonai Mitchell. They got Josh Downs. They got Pittman. And I think Jelani Woods is a deep sleeper too.
We definitely love Jelani Woods, especially this community. We do have a couple questions from our audience. We'll start with two fat guys, Anthony Juris. He says, Scott, do you believe that Sam Howell was brought in for competition or just because he was a value and upgrade at the backup quarterback? Greg, we'll let Scott first and then go first, and then we'll get you in there too.
It's more looking to the future. He's just 23 years old, and you want to have a good backup if Geno misses any time. Drew Lock was a good backup last year, I think, in a deep sleeper with the Giants. I took him in the next to last round of my Scott Fishbowl draft. So, he's somebody I like too, but Howell's not going to compete with Geno for the job coming out of camp. If Geno was to slip as Andrew predicts, they have Howell there, and I think it's a better situation for him passing wise and a better I think on a better team than what he played on last year. And but I think they're more looking towards the future, because if Geno doesn't perform to expectations next year, then 2025 is going to be Sam Howell season.
Great response. Greg, Sam Howell, was he brought there as a competitive piece, or are they looking for towards the future there?
I agree with Scott, but in truth, every player in the NFL is competitive. It's always a competitive situation.
Well, he's not going to push for the starting job in the preseason.
Unless Gino looks terrible and he looks great.
Well, I don't think they're going to let Gino lose the job in the preseason. It's unless Sam Howell has a Russell Wilson kind of preseason and Gino has a Matt Flynn kind of preseason, which I don't think is going to happen.
I don't either, to be honest. I really don't. But again, every position is up for competition.
We're definitely seeing a
Not really. I don't think there's a competition for the Jets quarterback position.
Well, unless he twists his ankle or something. I would say Mahomes is as locked in as any player, but it's a competitive league. So you always want to be on your game.
I love it. All
right, here we go. Homer pick. You ready?
Yep.
Oh, here we go.
JSN. All right. Love to see it. So Anthony also asks about the Seahawks, and then we'll get to Carl Ramrod's questions. If you guys have questions, now's the time to ask them. Feel free to pop the questions, and we'll try to get to as many as we possibly can. Two Fat Guys also asks, is the O-line in Seattle that much better this year?
I think it could be more stable, especially if Abe Lucas stays healthy. By the way, we have a flex in this, right?
Yes.
And, those two tackles, like the two outside tackles, Cross and Lucas, if they stay healthy, I think that unit can be more stable, especially in terms of the pass blocking. It's Michael Sean Duggar, who's a great beat reporter for The Athletic, says that this unit can be respectable this year, and I think that's what they're shooting for.
What about you, Greg? You think Seattle's O-line is going to do all right? How's that run game going to go?
Well, I don't think they're going to use it as much, so I think it will be more efficient. But I think they're going to be more of a passing offense than they were in the past. Yeah. But I want to see
that'll make Noah Fant an interesting value.
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, they just paid Noah Fant, didn't they, in a second contract? And historically,
all right, I'm going to get one of my favorite values here.
Let's see it. Oh, DeAndre Swift, I like it. Historically, when a tight end who didn't really quite get right around the first point of his contract usually steps up after they get their second contract. So I'm curious to see that. I don't think it's tight end by commission anymore in Seattle. So I think he's a great late round value, especially as a tight end.
Colby Parkinson, who left to go to the Rams, is a deep sleeper. There's a lot of positive reports coming out of LA with him.
So I think he is pretty competitive in that room. It's very easy to see a situation where he can emerge as the premier tight end.
He really doesn't have anybody battling him except for, was it Davis from last year? But
there's that kid Allen. I think.
I
think he's good as well.
Talking about.
But I want to thank everybody for holding off on Curtis Samuel, who I think is this year's Buffalo #1 receiver.
No, that'll be Dalton Kincaid.
Well, I'm talking about wide receivers, though, Scott.
Yeah, well, respectfully, Greg, and I'm probably wrong because you're usually right. I'm not excited about either him or Shakir. If I do prefer one, I prefer Shakir because neither one of them strikes me as a guy that can be a true #1 wide receiver in the NFL.
Yes, Davis Allen, Anthony. I will say I do like Curtis Samuel simply because for fantasy purposes, because he marries the run game and the receiving game. So we're going to see an uptick in terms of volume there. I like his utilization and the potential usage. And the last time we saw Curtis Samuel be absolutely spectacular was with Joe Brady. And there's a reason why they went out and got him, because Joe Brady's at their home, right? I'm very bullish on James Cook this year as well, because we saw what Joe Brady did with a guy like Christian McCaffrey. By no means am I saying it's the same guy, but stylistically, that's as close as James Cook can be to any other player comparison as well. We'll see what you do here with your pick, Scott. JSN slide is incredible right now.
These 30-second drafts don't give you a lot of time to talk and research.
Yep.
No, Jerry Jeudy. Ooh. Over Jerry Jeudy over Shaheed, Addison, Lockett, Dobbs, and Brandon Cooks.
I was considering Dobbs, but Shaheed is too boomer bust. Lockett is my favorite Seahawk, but fantasy wise, I want him less this year. Who else did you mention there?
I said Shaheed, Addison, Lockett, Dobbs, Cooks.
Yeah, Cooks is very inconsistent. Not fantasy. Fantasy wise, is not good. I don't like Addison with Sam Darnold opening the year as a starter.
Do you
So,
think
so
Darnold will open over JJ?
That's been the buzz there that they're gonna take it slow with the kid.
yeah, that was my question. That was my question. And great minds think alike, Greg. Speaking of great minds thinking alike, Bayou Bengal also has Samuel as the wide receiver one. But yeah, Quasi also, who's won first and second in one of these tournaments 2 years ago. Shout out to the two-time. He said, "You guys fight for third." He says, "Boom or bust is good for best ball." I tend to agree with there. Next question we have, and
That
guys,
that that I agree with that, but I think I might get more out of Judy overall, respectfully.
got you. Let's see what you do
Yeah.
here, because your guy Lockett is still there, Cooks is still there, Singletary, Purdy. See what you
I'll
do.
take a shot that he stays healthy.
Mike Williams. Oh, you're just getting your guys. You're like, forget ADP. I'm just going to get my
Yeah.
guys, and I'm okay with it. I'm okay with it. I think you have a very unique roster right now, and your draft is looking very strong. So we have another question
you.
from
Before you go to the question, I'm
Yes, sir.
about to make a pick that will surprise nobody.
A
Blake
lion,
Corum, Soccer. No, Blake
A
Corum.
Wolverine. A
Yeah.
Wolverine.
Jared Goff.
No,
Maybe.
I
Blake
like your Josh Palmer pick, by the way.
Blake Corum.
It's Blake Corum, and definitely not shocked by that. So we have a question from Carl Ramrod. Shout out to Carl Ramrod. He's drafting at the 105, I believe. He says, "Do you think Ridley and D Hop surpass 1,000 yards this season? If no to both, do you think any one of them surpasses 1,000 yards this season?"
I think Ridley will probably go over 1,200, and I think Hopkins can get close to or over, but I think it'll be a Ridley kind of show.
And
By the
I'm
way,
gonna
wide
say-
receivers have really flown off the board in this draft.
Yeah, so since it's PPR format, you're going to see, even though it's not necessarily a wide receiver premium, it's going to be treated as such, especially early on. So yeah, that's why you'll see a lot of
Good
guys.
running back values, though.
Yeah, great running back values right now.
Yeah.
Typically you'll see a lot of people go zero RB or hero RB, and then start getting some really good running back value later on. But yeah, we have another question here, and then I have a question about a player that a lot of people are out on, but I think there's still an avenue. Broadster, shout out to B-Rot. He didn't make this draft, but he's been drafting with us every night. Shout out to Broad. He says, "What wide receiver 4 has the best shot to be fantasy relevant this season? Is it Noah Brown or Bo Melton?" I guess he would be wide receiver 5, essentially.
I guess you're talking a super deep league there. If you want to go super deep, I like Jalen Hyde of the New York Giants. That guy could take top off of any defense. I think he's like 4th on the depth chart to start the year. Hyde has tremendous separation gears. Like you go far back, right? Right, Greg. He reminds me of Joey Galloway when he was young.
I like
Joey Galloway was amazing. Speed kills.
Rico Dowdle pick. I don't hate
It
it.
was between him and Edwards. In a standard, I would have went with Edwards, but in a best ball, I'm going to take Dowdle for more upside.
Yeah,
I would have figured you for a Singletary guy.
I don't know. There's been a lot of talk about Eric Gray, pushing for that job.
Eric
I don't
Gray.
think Singletary's there anymore.
I think Singletary was taken.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was taken pick 113, so a round before. All right, we're on the clock. The Brock Purdy value is spectacular, but I have no correlation. I could use a running back. I'll go Gus Bus here. And then I'll also go with it's a toss-up between all right, I'll try Trevor Lawrence.
You don't have much time for a toss-up.
I know. Well, it was either Trevor Lawrence or Zeke, and I'm looking at the value for Trevor Lawrence. I have a little bit of correlation with Christian Kirk here. So my only issue is now if I want to get Kirk Cousins to go with my Kyle Pitts and Drake London stack, I'd have 2 quarterbacks on a Week 12 bye, leaving Caleb Williams alone. But I think 3 quarterbacks is safe.
Yeah, you got to be more concerned with a buy, in a league like this, where it's best ball. I think.
Yeah.
I think people overrate it in seasonal because you really just want to work. Because by the time the bye weeks come back, like I just got Brock Purdy to back up Richardson, which I'm happy with if Richardson gets hurt. But let's look at like Richardson as a week 14 bye. Purdy has a 9-week bye, so that means McCaffrey has 9, right? Taylor has 14. You don't draft based off your bye weeks because your roster is going to change so much by the time the bye weeks come up. The other thing I don't do is draft based on playoff schedules, week 14 to 17, because a lot of that playoff analysis is based on last year, and so much is going to change during the year, and your team's going to change a lot by then.
Somebody just stole the Dow for me.
You like Kamani Vidal this year?
He's the starter there.
You think he's a
No,
starter?
he's not.
I think
Edwards
he
is
will
a
be
top
by
to depth
week
chart.
4. He will be by
Okay,
week
he will
4.
be. Okay, nice.
Yeah.
I like that.
I look at Kamani Vidal, and I think I don't know what ethnicity or origin that last name is from, but I think it's the direct translation from whatever language that is Isaiah Spiller 2.0. I'm not high on Vidal.
Javid Best. Oh, sorry about that.
No, you're good.
No, mentioning Javid Best. I'm sure he doesn't like that.
Oh, Javid
I
Best.
like Javid Best. He just wasn't used properly.
Yeah, it was Javid Worst.
Well, no, he should have had a fullback in front of him.
Oh, man. So there's a player that a lot of people are out on. A lot of people still planning to die on that hill. I plan to die on that hill, and that's Javonte Williams. I need to ask you guys, we'll start with you, Greg, this time, then we'll go to Scott. I need to ask you guys, how do you guys think Javonte Williams is going to do this year, or is he out of the mix? Because some folks are even saying, he's out, he's gone. Estime, McLaughlin, those 2 guys are the ones taking the helm. Javonte's out. How do you feel, Greg? And then we'll go Scott. How do you feel this year about my man Javonte Williams?
I've got mixed feelings. You see that I just took Jaleel McLaughlin, and I've been drafting him a lot. But Javonte is 2 years removed from that massive knee injury.
Correct.
So if he's going to come back, it'll be this year. I want to see him in preseason. We're drafting way early. I prefer my drafts to happen in mid-August after we've seen a couple preseason games. But I'd like to get Scott's opinion on this because he's closer to the situation.
I'm just loving my pick of TJ Hawkinson right now.
Even though he's starting out on the pup?
Yeah, but they say he's making better recovery than they expected. So, to get him where I get him, what round are we in now? 15?
13.
13. Get him in round 13 as a tight end too. I'll take it every day.
I much prefer the value you got with Brock Purdy. You got him 24 picks past 8.
I got both of them. Yeah, so
Yeah,
I'm
that's
good with that. Well, who were we talking about? I just forgot.
Javonte Williams.
Yeah, he's not an exciting sort of pick. He hasn't shown enough yet. He's got to show us something. I'm not confident he did. That might be a full-blown committee there in Denver, I'm thinking.
So in terms of drafting, especially in best ball, obviously it's important to get to be contrarian and get exposed to all of them. But if you had to pick one, not necessarily just best ball, but if you just had to leave with one, who would that be?
Between who?
Out of the Denver backfield, Samaje Perine still in the mix. Estime, McLaughlin, and
McLaughlin's small. He's just going to be a pass catching back. I guess I'd have to lean Williams, but I'm not thrilled with it.
Fair enough.
Scott, you say McLaughlin's small, right?
Yeah, he's like 5'7".
Right. How big is HN?
Who?
Devon Achane.
Yeah, I know people have said that. He's like 5'8", 188, but I think he's more the exception than the rule.
Oh, I agree. I don't like backs that are under 300, under 200 pounds. But
Yeah.
how big is McLaughlin? Because I think
But
he's over
look, but
200
look,
pounds.
I don't think he's anywhere as fast as a Chan.
No, I
And
don't either.
A Chan doesn't carry a full load either.
That's true.
Yeah.
Neither does Jameer Gibbs. Neither do a lot of backs in the NFL nowadays.
I like
What is
the
Gibbs? What does he weigh? What does this guy
203.
weigh? Yeah,
203.
that's different. Yeah.
Yeah.
I like that we're comparing HN to McLaughlin right now because stylistically they're both change of pace backs. I don't consider them receiving backs. I think they're both change of pace backs. To get a big splash play. I think if you're talking about a receiving back in the running back room from the Denver Broncos, he's still probably the best pass blocker on third down, and he's probably still the most sure-handed running back in that room. And a lot of people hate him. He's going undrafted. People have him, projected to be either traded or released this year, and that's Samaje Perine. Do we think Perine has any relevancy at all this year, especially in a best ball format, or are we just completely out on Perine this year?
Yeah, I'm out on him. It's over.
I respect it.
Yeah.
I agree.
I respect it. So none of those running backs excite you guys from Denver.
Not
Nope.
really, no.
Oh man, that's rough because I'm willing to die on that Javonte.
I like how deep this draft is going though, because like in other drafts, like the Scott Fishbowl, I'm like, can we go another 2 rounds? I still got guys on the board,
Well, I'm glad that this is your first draft here on Drafters. So far,
It's been fun.
yeah. Please tell me what do you think of the app? What do you think of the user interface or the website? What do you think about the tournament itself? How are you liking Drafters?
It's very smooth so far.
Good to hear it.
Yeah,
Good to
very very user friendly. As I
Love
keep scrolling past Mike Gesicki, because I'm not doing this for anybody who plays fantasy baseball. He's like Brian Hayes. Every year we hear like he's going to do it for the last 6 years, and it never happens.
Had to take a third tight end because I got auto picked last time. I like the Taysom Hill pick, but he's got the same bye week as my starting tight end. I would not have made that pick. But if I talk, it's hard with a 30-second clock to get your way
It
back.
is. It is.
Agreed. What's up, Willie? Good to see you, buddy. Once again, guys, if you guys have questions, chat, feel free to send them in. Hot Take City says, sorry I'm late. Work kicked my butt tonight. It's all good, man. I'm just glad you made it. Rashad Bateman, you took the Bateman. How do you feel about Bateman this year? You think he's worth the hype? Everybody's super high on him, saying that this is going to be the year.
I'm not super hyped because if he breaks out as a wide receiver for Lamar Jackson, he would be the first to do so.
Mm-hmm.
That said, we've seen injuries, etc. So it is possible that that he does break out. So, but I don't think he's going to be like Nico Collins. He's going to have 1,300 yards or something like that.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
We need to start getting some wide receivers here. Actually, we'll take Likely. What about this news that right now it's in the running back room for the Kansas City Chiefs, right? There's news that Deneric Prince has just jumped over Clyde Edwards-Helaire as the RB2 in that room. Do you think there's any merit to that, or is it just one of those, smoke and it's all smoke, no fire?
Yeah, there's my sleeper.
Oh, there's your Parkinson. You're just getting your guys. I respect it. He also has a week 6 bye as well.
I didn't even look at the bye. I got 3 tight ends. So
I think you're good. I think as a standalone value, Sam Laporta on week 6.
Now I'm getting my very deep sleepers.
I'm excited to see who they are, and I'm excited to ask you guys about it. Chef says, "Sup, you beautiful, amazing people." So, Deneric Prince, is there any fire there, or is it just smoke?
I think as a handcuff, there might be some fire, but I think we all know by now that Clyde Edwards-Helaire is an NFL bust.
Agreed.
I'm still holding hope for Clyde Edwards-Helaire, especially with Jerick McKinnon being gone. I like him being the third down receiving back. Yes, Pacheco's going to get more involved in the receiving game.
Not doing it anymore. Been fooled too many times.
Oh,
everybody, was so hot on him after that first NFL game, and we've never seen anything of substance since.
I
And by
respect
the
it.
way, I took my third quarterback here because it's best ball. When you get Pat Mahomes as your starting quarterback, you probably don't need three. But in best ball, you just never know. And I love Russell Wilson this late.
My draft is my connection. Okay, there we go. Yeah,
Or
Russ is interesting, but Russ is interesting. Like this will, he's got a lot of pressure on him. I think in terms of him putting pressure on himself to want to prove that he's not done. So he still throws a good deep ball, and he's out of a pressure situation in terms of external pressure. But I think he'll put a lot of pressure on himself.
And I had Roman Wilson queued up to get the stack, and somebody snatched him.
Bayou Bengal with the snipe show. The way I look at it, especially there, it's George Pickens because he's got the safest floor and highest ceiling, and then the rest of them I'm kind of like meh. I look at yes, Arthur Smith definitely favors the tight end position. He likes to target and get the tight end position involved early and often, but also look at historically what Russell Wilson has done. Russell Wilson doesn't really like the tight end position, so
No, he
unless
doesn't. He never has.
yeah, so unless the Justin Fields emerges as the QB1, which I doubt he will off the rip. I think we will see him. He'll probably have a couple of packages designed for him, but just as the pure starter getting the majority of the reps, I'm kind of worried about Fryermuth this year. It's weird. You got a bunch of guys, a bunch of individuals who kind of like do things differently stylistically, and I think the only player who I absolutely love and adore there this year, other than the two running backs, especially in PPR format, I love Jalen Warren. I think Najee's a smash play, especially at his ADP. But the only player who I think has, elite upside, league winning upside, that's George Pickens for me personally. But I'm curious to see how you guys feel about George
Oh,
Pickens.
by the way, I just took Justin Fields a few picks later because let's remember, if Fields gets to play, he was QB6 2 years ago and had the second best rushing season of any quarterback ever.
I mean, rushing quarterbacks are super valuable, especially in this format, because it's only 4 points per passing touchdown, whereas 6 points per rushing touchdown. Dameon Pierce. Okay, I need to get more wide receivers. I'll take Dortch. There's a lot
That's
of hype
interesting. That's an interesting pick. And that's the thing. I never ever get sniped, especially in drafts with experts like you guys, because when I queue somebody up, you're queuing them up, and I always have several players ready, so I never get sniped.
You're unsnipeable.
Yeah,
Devon Baker, I like it.
yeah.
Billy Gableman, he's a big fastball drafter. He says Russell Wilson would have been available 3 rounds later. Totally understood, just based off of ADP. But you got to realize this is their first time here. Well, this is Scott's first time using this app. He didn't take Russell. It was Greg. This is Greg's third one of these. He's done a couple minis. But at the end of the day, just go get your guy. If you're happy with Russell Wilson where you're getting him after round 15, ADP is irrelevant. It doesn't necessarily matter. Just go get your guy.
Especially in a field like this, you got to treat it like a high stakes draft, like the NFFC or the FFPC. Can't
Yeah.
go by ADP when you're drafting against sharks.
And this guy,
Yeah.
I could have waited till the last pick for this guy because nobody's thinking about cowing. But if Ayuk gets traded, that's going to be a slot that he could start over Pearsall.
I have Jawan Jennings filling in that void. Jawan Jennings, guys. If Kansas City didn't win the Super Bowl, he would have been the Super Bowl MVP easily. Jawan Jennings showed a lot. They brought him back. He's under a new contract. I like him. I like him a lot actually.
I've seen with him too many times though when he's been asked to be a number 2 wide receiver that he hasn't stepped up. So
this is
that's
true.
just my opinion.
This is true. Okay, Willie says this is another Seahawks fan. Shocker. Willie says, "Love that hat, Scott." Seahawks. Will the Seahawks be making the playoffs this year?
Thanks, Willie. Make sure to go check me out on Seahawks.com. Go to News and Fantasy Insider. Several articles up already. By the way, somebody just took Jalen Hyatt, so I guess they're listening to me.
Tip Major did.
I think they have a good shot for that last wild card. I think.
Okay. Greg, do you think that the Seahawks have any playoff hopes or implications this year? I know you're coming up.
I would hope so, but I want to see preseason. I'm not a huge guy on making guesses like this.
I don't know if preseason's going to tell us a lot, though.
It's got to tell us something more than what we know right now.
I think
A lot of teams will run vanilla offenses. I think we might not know, the true story until about week 4.
Yeah, I mean, nobody's going to ever even say, who their true starters are. It's all cloak and dagger at this point. Everybody's keeping it close to the chest. But back to the Seahawks making the playoffs, I think, man, that division's improved. You got, the Rams defense didn't necessarily get better or worse. They obviously lost Aaron Donald, so clearly they got worse. But the LA Rams, should Matthew Stafford be healthy, Kyron Williams healthy, Blake Corum there in case, Kyron Williams isn't healthy. You got Puka Nacua, you got Cooper Kupp. They should make some noise. And I think the Cardinals are also going to make some noise. And obviously, it's still San Francisco's division. I think them making the playoffs, squeaking in, I think it's going to be a much more competitive division this year. That's for sure.
This is a sharp room. Just every deep sleeper I've mentioned almost has gotten taken.
Yeah, the community is a very, very sharp community. We put
Hyatt, etc.
It is 20 rounds, though. Jelani Woods is gone. I would have liked to get.
I took Eric Gray in the next last round. I'm seeing a lot of reports out of New York/New Jersey that he could push for the starting job.
I'm going to take a guy that Greg and I were arguing about before the stream even started. Tight end. I just took Michael Mayer, Greg.
Yeah, I think that if he gets 60 targets, he's having a good year this year.
In best ball format, he's going to be solid.
By the way, I guess people listen to me because nobody's drafted Mike Gesicki.
I like Gesicki, but I've got 3 tight ends already.
I personally prefer Eric Alt, but that's just like a.
That's because you love Michigan Wolverines.
He's also an Iowa Hawkeye, but I just like the tight ends that come out of Iowa. I mean, last year I called Sam Laporta being the tight end 1 in May after the NFL draft.
Do you know why Eric All went to Iowa?
Because Luke Schoonmaker was ahead of him, and they don't really use the tight end position in Michigan. I think Luke Schoonmaker might be a great late round flyer as well. God forbid anything happens to Jake Ferguson this season. And with the volatile style of football, he plays, Luke Schoonmaker would be a very good late round flyer in my opinion. I liked Luke Schoonmaker last year as well.
These are also sharks because this draft took 45 minutes.
Yeah, definitely.
I don't know. I think I'm looking at my team now. I took Drew Lock as my last pick because I think he's another deep sleeper. I took 4 quarterbacks, but it was just about Fields or Lock being the third. I only got 5 running backs. Maybe I would like to have more, but we do have a flex, and we just start 2. I got 8 wide receivers and 3 tight ends.
Yeah, so we're actually going to go through all the communities lineups right now. Once the draft closes, after
I'll be able to see all of them, or
I'll pull it up. So you don't have to have the app up anymore. Just come back to the screen. I'll call the players out, and then we'll actually grade them and give any sort of feedback or advice for the members of the community. Then we'll look at all of our drafts as well. So draft is over. Let's start with Tip Major. That's Greg Kellogg's co-host. Greg, you want to talk more about your show about Tip?
Yeah, Tip is actually he was going to come to the expo, and then he couldn't make the expo because his dog needed emergency surgery. Cost him $1,200. He's freed up the money. He will be at the expo this year. So if y'all want to meet Tip, go to the expo. I'll introduce you. We're going to get him there, and he's going to enjoy it. He's one of the brighter young minds, and I say young. He's in his 40s, but he's only been doing this for about 3 years. So, and he's a nice guy. And that's what I love about Scott is the way Scott greeted me last year at the expo. I'm standing in the foyer just kind of looking around dumbstruck, and Scott yells out, "That's Greg Kellogg. He's an OG." And I'm like, what? Scott hadn't seen me since 2010 when we got the Hall of Fame awards. That's
Yeah.
it.
I was so happy to see you. I almost tackled you.
Oh man, it was great to see you too, Scott. It really
Yeah.
was. Tip is that kind of guy. He's just a good guy. Now, Disco, when I meet you, you're 6'8", 320. You do not tackle me.
No tackling. No tackling.
I got to
my
ask
back.
Andrew something here.
What's up?
Now, I don't know. Why do they call you Disco? Are you a good dancer or something?
It's actually back in my day when back in my day. God, I'm 34. Back when I was a gamer, a streamer who played video games.
Oh,
One of my
okay.
one of my favorite movies is Don't Mess with the Zohan, and one of the things was Disco.
Disco, yeah.
Exactly. So that's what birthed the name Disco, and it's always some fun disco name that I always had, and Disco stuck. People call me Disco, so I like it. I think it's a very fun name. It's definitely better than Andrew, but yeah, I love the nickname. I love being called Disco.
Hey, and this is an example of a Hall of Fame reporter getting to the heart of the information that nobody else would ever get. Scott is outstanding at getting to the story.
Thank you. Thank you.
Anthony
By the
said-
way, I'm on deck in the FFPC Pros versus Joes. Chris Sims is right ahead of me. And so far, I have, remember this tight end premium. I have Garrett Wilson, Marvin Harrison, and Kyle Pitts. Now I'm thinking either Josh Jacobs or Lamar Jackson or Jalen Hurts. And I'm leaning Josh Jacobs. I feel like he's so durable and is playing so much of a better offense that I think people are underrating him this year.
I agree with you, but I would also say go get Marshawn Lloyd late.
Oh yeah. I like Jacobs better than Pacheco in best ball, I think. Pacheco can have some good games here and there, but he won't get the yardage. I could go for Lamar or Jalen Hurts, but I could wait till the next round for a quarterback.
I love Jalen Hurts this year and every year, especially where he's going in these drafts. I think when elite quarterbacks are going in round 4 or 5, you gotta get them, especially with that rushing upside.
Yeah, I'm coming up like round 4, pick 3, and I'm actually thinking Jackson over Hurts because he improved as a passer last year, and he's got more rushing upside. The thing with Hurts is, yeah, you got the tush push, but they didn't have a goal line area back like Saquon Barkley last year. And I think Saquon Barkley might even get the TV total.
Do you think Saquon can get 15 touchdowns this year? Because I do.
Combined?
Total,
I think maybe 13.
Okay.
We're splitting hairs.
But I mean, you could say the same thing about Derrick Henry going into that situation. Lamar Jackson wasn't up there in goal line touches either. I think Jalen Hurts. If you have
just in the pure rushing yardage, there's nobody better.
Yeah, but if you're talking about the most unstoppable play that we've seen in football almost ever with the tush push, you're not going to stop it ever. You're not going to stop.
No, but I think what happens is though, because of the read option, along with Barkley, you don't know whether it's going to be tush push or Barkley coming at you.
This is very true. This is very true.
And they lost a Hall of Fame center.
Yeah. I think Kelsey was very crucial in the tush push, but I think somebody who kind of doesn't get enough recognition that he should, especially for the tush push and the concept of the tush push, is their left tackle Jordan Mailata. This guy was a rugby player. The QB sneak is literally a scrum. It's a ruck, and the leverage that they use is being taken from his experience as a rugby player. I think as long as they have Mailata and that offensive line coach, I think they can coach whoever they put in at the center position. Personally, I still think Jalen Hurts is going to finish with 10, 13 rushing touchdowns, and he's got 2 spectacular wide receivers, the most reliable tight end in fantasy football in Dallas. I think they're going to be spectacular. The addition of
Goddard was not reliable at all last year.
Goddard was hurt a lot last year. He has a safe floor, though. If we're talking about last year, yes. Last year,
I would say the last 2 years he hasn't been reliable.
I think
he's not even in my top 10.
I think if Hurts scores 8 rushing touchdowns this year, it'll be a good year for him.
Goddard
I expect double digit for him this year.
Really, in my opinion, back to God, I think he has top 5 upside every year he plays football.
Yeah,
That's what I like.
I think he's overrated fantasy wise. NFL wise, I'm not going to disagree with you.
I will say that Shane Steichen definitely benefited him way more than the current offensive situation. But Kellen Moore's also there, and I like the rate of pace that we're going to see them running with Kellen Moore at the helm as the offensive coordinator. Yeah. Okay, let's get to Tip's lineup. The chat's going. Let's so I'll call the lineup. I'll say the players he has, and then I'll ask you guys for any feedback, any advice, and then a grade. We grade from A+ all the way down to F. Be nice. Tip goes 3-5-9-3. He goes Lamar Jackson, Jaden Daniels, so 2 quarterbacks with the same bye, and then Will Levi. Running back Christian McCaffrey, Derrick Henry, Chase Brown, Roshan Johnson, Dylan Laube. Wide receiver, he has Brandon Ayuk, Lad McConkey, BTJ, Brian Thomas Jr., Jameson Williams, Brandon Cooks, Jahan Dotson, Gabe Davis, A.T. Perry, Jalen Hyatt. Tight end, he goes Trey McBride, Noah Fant, Chig Ozemokanku. Greg, since this is your co-host, you'll go first, then Scott, then I'll finish up.
F-. No, seriously. No, I think Tip knows what he's doing. I'm not a big fan of his quarterback room. He's got 1 really good quarterback and 2 guys that we hope. Jaden Daniels could be the next big thing, but he's a rookie. He runs too much and he runs too upright. I'm worried the kid's going to get broken in half because that offensive line is not all that. I like his top 2 running backs. Who wouldn't? I think he's got probably in this whole draft the best 2 running backs to start, but then he's got nothing after that.
You are on the clock.
His wide receivers, I think, are solid. I like his wide receivers a lot. And his tight ends, again, I think his tight ends and his running backs are pretty similar. You got a little bit of star power, but in a best ball, you're not going to be able to replace them. You're not going to pick matchups. You don't have to pick matchups, which is a good thing. I think they're serviceable. I would probably give them a B+.
Okay. Scott, how do you feel about Tipper's lineup?
I'm going to give him a B. I like his quarterbacks, huge rushing upside for Daniels, and that's his number 2. I like his running back room. I guess I'm going to be super critical that Roshan Johnson and A.T. Perry might not produce much. And his wide receivers are thin after the top 1, but he did back that up by drafting a lot of potential sleepers at wide receivers. So I think he kind of covered himself there.
I like what both of you said. I'm going to give this a C+. And hear me out, Tip, because I'm not trying to be critical. I always try to give you guys as honest and direct of an answer as humanly possible. If you make the bet on an elite quarterback, that is like an investment, right? If you are investing early on a quarterback for roster construction, it makes sense to go 2 quarterbacks. So roster construction alone, going Lamar, even though I like the 3 quarterbacks a lot, going Lamar Jackson, where you got him at ADP, which is a good value in my opinion, is like you can't go wrong with Jalen Hurts or Lamar Jackson at ADP. I think they both have incredible upside. I just personally am biased towards Jalen Hurts. So I would think just from a roster construction alone, I like the quarterbacks. I don't love that you went with 3, especially 2 of them sharing the same bye week. That means Will Levi's got to be all world. I think you would have been fine with Lamar and Will Levi, or even just Jaden Daniels, Will Levi, and maybe a third flyer. At your running back position, I think you did spectacular. I really love your running backs. I think Roshan has just as good of a chance as DeAndre Swift or Khalil Herbert to emerge as the feature guy. So if you're going to take a shot on any of them, it's good to take your shots. I like Chase Brown. I love the efficiency he has per touch. I don't think Zach Moss. I think Zach Moss has a safer floor, but if we're talking about ceiling, which wins these tournaments, Chase Brown all the way. When I look at your wide receivers at first glance, I agree with Scott. Like you got Ayuk, who has a lot of red flags coming in, but he did report today, which is very good. And then you got a lot of high ceiling, high upside players. You want at least 3 to 4 wide receivers to finish in the top 10 every single week, right? I think with all these guys being ceiling plays, there's a universe where this is possible. But when I'm looking at your roster construction, I don't think you have any floor. This is all ceiling, no floor, which is great for best ball. This will either smash or be a $15 donation. So I personally don't hate your wide receiver room. At tight end, you got Trey McBride. I think that's a great value, but similar to, the quarterback position, if you are investing that early capital at the tight end position, in terms of roster construction, go with 2 tight ends. Chig as a second tight end or Noah Fan as a second tight end is perfectly awesome because, you don't necessarily need that third tight end. Trey McBride's the guy you made your bet on. He was your big investment. So yeah, I don't hate it. I can see it doing well. But take my advice. Don't take my advice. I could be very wrong, but that's just.
I got a question for you, Disco.
What's up, buddy?
You said 3 or 4 top 10 players at wide receiver each week?
Yeah, like
there's 12 teams. You're not going to get 3 top 10 players each week.
There's 180,000 teams.
Yeah,
I understand that, but you're not going to get 3 top 10 players at a single position each week. That's just not realistic.
Why not?
Want to get 3 guys. You want to get 3 or 4 guys that are in the top 30, I would say. You want to get them in the top 30, but top 10, those guys are going early in drafts and they're spread out among various teams.
Top 10, top 20. Yeah, very valid point. Very valid point. Hi, Wendy. Thank you for popping by.
hey,
Good to see you, Wendy Early. Guys, shout out to Wendy Early. Beautiful person.
Hey, Wendy.
We got a question here from Anthony. His question is one last 2-part question for Scott from me, and we'll get Greg to answer it as well. What can you tell me about the jersey I will see you in, and can we expect another exciting karaoke routine this year? Ooh.
oh, okay. I'm not sure. I'm 50-50 on whether I'm going to be there right now. So if I do come, maybe it'll be a different jersey than what you've seen, and certainly different music than what you've heard.
I like it. I like it a lot.
So Scott, I got to tell you, I got tipped to stay an extra day because of the karaoke party. And the only reason I would go to karaoke, because I can't sing for nothing, is to see you perform.
Thank
So
you.
if that can lean you 60-40, I'll take it because I really want to see you perform at karaoke.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Right now, unfortunately, I'm 50-50. So I'm not saying I'm going. I'm not saying I'm not going yet. So
Fair enough. Billy gave him with the correction. So in order to win the tournament, you need 3 top 10 wide receivers for the season because it's cumulative scoring. Thank you for the correction, Billy. I appreciate it. Let's look at Bayou Bengals lineup now. Scott, you'll go first, then Greg, then I'll finish up. So Bayou Bengal, very sharp drafter. This is draft number 119. He will be going live in 1 minute, guys, and he's doing a giveaway tonight. So whenever we're done our show, head over there and make sure you hit him with the disco raid because it's very exciting. I love what he does when we do the disco raid. He goes 2, 6, 10, 2. Josh Allen, Matthew Stafford. Running back, he goes Kenneth Walker, Ramondre Stevenson, Jonathan Brooks, Brian Robinson. I like the running backs room. Ty Chandler, Braylon Allen. Wide receiver, he goes Tyreek Hill, Cooper Kupp, Terry McLaurin, Tyler Lockett. Great value for Tyler Lockett. Almost 11 picks past ADP. Adonai Mitchell, Ricky Pearsall, Roman Wilson, Greg Sky, 15 picks past ADP. Tyler Boyd, Rondell Moore, Bo Melton. Tight end, he goes Travis Kelce, Hunter Henry. So this is perfect. I look at the roster construction. You go early, elite quarterback. So you go 2 quarterbacks. You go elite tight end. You go 2 tight ends. I love it. I love it. Greg, how do you feel about the lineup?
I like it better than mine, to be honest. I think he did a great job. He got value at running back and wide receiver. He got a star quarterback and a star tight end. So he loaded up on running back and wide receiver. And I think it's a solid. I'll give it an A.
I'll give it a B plus. I don't see any major weaknesses there, except with running back. I think he kind of waited and is going to see if somebody hits there, outside of his top guy, and if somebody does, it might be a hard team to beat.
Yeah, well, he just needs two on a weekly basis because I think he's banking on his wide receivers here. But yeah, I hate giving him anything higher than a B minus, but this is an A for me. I love the construction. I think when I look at his running backs, two can easily finish as a top two on a weekly basis and on the year. I love the wide receivers. Very, very good, safe floor, high ceiling as well. You're going to find it difficult to find, three good wide receivers though in week 6, especially high performers, especially going Tyreek Hill and Cooper Kupp. But there's good micro stacks. I love the correlation. You don't go full team correlation; you go with the micro stacks. I love it. I think it's a smash of a draft. You did really, really good. Yeah, it's good. I like it a lot. Let's look at Carl Ramrods. The chat is going. Knifey Spoony says, to Disco's point, last year the number 1 team in this tournament had Mike Evans, AJ Brown, CeeDee Lamb, Tank Dell, and Amari Cooper. You need to hit on wide receiver, and arguably that team did have 3 to 4 top 10 wide receivers weekly. Yeah, for sure, and for the entire year. Totally. Billy Gableman gives that an A minus. Only question mark is RB, but it's all great work by you there. All right, let's look at Carl Ramrod. This is draft number 97. People are invested. We're trying to max this lineup out, getting 150 lineups. Carl Ramrod goes with a 3-5-10-2 build. Scott, you're first. He goes Jared Goff, Bryce Young, Gardner Minshew. Running back, he goes Kyron Williams, James Conner, Tony Pollard, Javonte Williams, and Antonio Gibson, who is on the IR, I believe, or unable to perform list. Amon-Ra St. Brown at the wide receiver position, Devontae Adams, George Pickens, Keenan Allen, DeAndre Hopkins. Your first 5 wide receivers are elite. Joshua Palmer, Jacoby Myers, Adam Thielen, Demarcus Robinson, DJ Chark. He goes with a 2 tight end build. Personally, if Cole Kmet's your first tight end, I'd go 3, but it's not my turn yet. He goes Cole Kmet and Zach Ertz. So, Scott, you're up. How do you feel about this roster? Give my guy Carl Ramrod some advice. Tell him what you like, what you dislike. Give him a grade, please, and thank you.
No disrespect, and you'll probably finish ahead of me, but it's a C. I mean, he loaded up a wide receiver, and he did great. He even picked off some later values, but I think that was at the expense of the other positions, especially tight end.
Fair assessment. Greg, you're up.
Yeah, I'm worse than Scott. I'm going D, and he's got one position. He's got wide receivers. If the commenter in the chat was right, and all you need to win is 3 to 4 top 10 wide receivers, he may have that. He may have 3 to 4 end of year top 10 wide receivers here.
It's for all positions, not just the wide receiver position.
But he's not. But his problem is the other positions. He just doesn't have them. So I do not like this draft.
So we're looking at Kyron Williams, James Conner, Tony Pollard, and Javonte Williams, and we don't like this running back room?
No, because Kyron may not. I'm a Corum guy. You know that.
Yeah.
I think Kyron, at best, he's already injured. At best, he splits carries with Corum, and at worst, he loses the job.
So he's not working.
Williams is question marks. We don't know what Javonte would. There were rumors earlier this year that he wouldn't even make it out of training camp.
Well, those rumors are gaining a lot of smoke right now. Currently, there's a couple of beat writers who are reporting that he's out or not even in the rotation. What about you, Scott?
With Kyron Williams, I totally disagree with Greg. I like Corum as a player. He's elusive. He's got juke. But the only reason that Blake Corum is there, I think a lot of people are making too much of the situation. With all due respect to Greg, they didn't have a good backup for Kyron Williams last year. They need somebody to keep him fresh and be a change of pace and be a good backup. Kyron Williams earned that starting job, and if he plays anything like he did last year, there's no way he's losing that job. There's no way it's going to be a timeshare. Blake Corum is going to be a backup.
I mean, it's good, right? It's good. I love that everybody has, opinions that conflict, because at the end of the day, it's all humility. We all are making the bet once again.
Oh, if I'm wrong, the first one I'm going to give credit to is Greg.
Totally. And we all have the humility to, make a bet on our guy and draft accordingly to our bets. But we also have the humility to admit that, there's a lot of situations and scenarios that could potentially make us wrong. So I love it. When I look at this draft, I'm giving it C plus, B minus, simply because, I do like the running back room. I think Kyron Williams, if he's healthy, he's a league winner. Your quarterbacks, I don't necessarily love. I don't necessarily hate. I think Bryce Young could perform, outperform his ADP. I really do. I think Jared Goff should be fine and solid, especially, the value you got him at. I love it. You got correlation, a couple micro stacks. Your wide receiver room is elite. Your wide receiver room is A plus. Your tight ends just kill it for me. I think there's going to be weeks where both of these guys could potentially have 0. B minus, C plus along that realm. So we got MVP Jug. Then we got our 3 lineups, and then we'll call it a day and head over to Bayou. So MVP Jug goes 3, 6, 8, 3. He goes Jalen Hurts, Deshaun Watson, Bo Nix. Goes Saquon Barkley, Trey Benson. I love the value of Trey Benson this year. Zach Charbonnet, the running back room, major drop off. Jalen Wright, Elijah Mitchell, Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Wide receiver, A.J. Brown, Michael Pittman, Deontay Johnson, Keon Coleman, Cortland Sutton, Jalen Polk, Malachi Corley, Elijah Moore, tight end, Mark Andrews, Brock Bowers, Jelani Woods. Greg, you're up first.
I like it. I actually do. He took 2 or 3 of the players that I had targeted in the rounds I had them targeted. So I think we were thinking a lot alike. I think that the biggest upside in this one is Jalen Wright. I really wanted to get him late as a running back because if something happens to either Miami running back, he could get a huge role simply because he's big and fast. And, you got a 33-year-old starter and you got a 188-pound change of pace guy there. This guy combines size and speed, and I like Jalen Wright a lot, but it's all potential. We don't know. But that's what Kyron Williams was last year, all potential. So I like this draft. I like the wide receivers. I think the quarterbacks are solid. I think this lineup has potential.
Can I ask you a question, Greg? Do you think that he can have 2 top scorers on a weekly basis and on the season from the running back position? Because clearly he's banking on 2 of these guys doing well. Do you think he can have 2 on a weekly basis that could perform in a top 15, top 10 basis?
I think Saquon Barkley has the ability and the opportunity to be a top 5 running back this year.
I don't think we're debating that point at all.
No. What I'm saying, that's number 1. He's one of them. So all you need is a second guy.
Yeah.
And I can't read the screen in front of me. But
it's Benson, Charbonnet, Wright, Elijah Mitchell, Clyde Edwards-Helaire.
Okay, so I think out of the others, he will get a marginal starter unless Wright gets the job. If Wright gets the job, yes, I do believe that he can. But looking at it as is right now, no, I don't think. I think his second running back is going to be low-end RB2 range to RB3 range.
Fair assessment. I have the exact same. Scott, how do you feel about this lineup, brother?
B plus. I think it's a running back injury away or 2 from being an A. Love quarterback, RB1. This is a guy that obviously did his homework at wide receiver, picked off a lot of values. The only pick I don't like, if I'm going to nitpick, is Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Just to me, he's a wasted fantasy draft pick. Like what he did at tight end. I like about 80% of what he did. So this was a good draft.
And for the audience, Scott, myself, and Disco likes CEH. Scott and I agree. We don't think he's there anymore. So
it's done.
This is a 2 against 1.
Yeah, well, I mean, I've been wrong so many times, especially when it comes to fantasy football. I just like the vacancy of Jerick McKinnon, and I think if we're talking about PPR upside late in the season, somebody who's going to take you down the stretch, if he fills that void that Jerick McKinnon had last year and the year before, I think he could be a league winner as a late round flyer. You're not hurting yourself by drafting him with the 210th overall pick.
With all respect, Andrew, I can never say Clyde Edwards-Helaire and league winner in the same sentence remotely. Here's 2 things, to go off your point. And if you're right, I'll say you're right. But the reason why I think you're definitely going to be wrong is opportunity does not always lead to production. And
Fair.
Clyde Edwards-Helaire gets that opportunity. We've seen nothing to indicate that he can do something with it. Plus the fact, why do you got to throw to Clyde Edwards-Helaire when you now have Xavier Worthy and Hollywood Brown? So I just don't see it happening. If this was an AFC West only league, I wouldn't draft Clyde Edwards-Helaire.
Well,
Solid opinion. That's what you want on
it's
your
fun.
show. Just
I
go.
love it. I love it, and I'm looking forward to having this conversation again in January. I love the hell out of.
Oh no, you're really not looking forward to it in January.
I am. I
Look,
100%
I
am.
want to be clear about something. I'm talking about fantasy production here. I don't criticize guys as NFL players because what you do in the NFL that doesn't count for fantasy can very often be different. And he's
Yeah.
on that roster for reasons other than fantasy. For fantasy, not a contributor.
Yeah, well, as I said, I see a world where he can definitely be involved in the passing game down the stretch, and the value that you're drafting him at.
If like three wide receivers and Kelsey get injured, yeah.
Well, let's be honest.
Hey, wait a minute now. And Noah Gray. Because
Yeah.
if Kelsey goes down, Noah Gray's pretty good.
Well, let's be honest. How many healthy seasons has Hollywood Brown had since he's been in the NFL, where he's been healthy for all the weeks in the season? How many times has Hollywood Brown finished the season, the last 5 weeks of the season healthy? Don't worry, I'll wait.
That's true, but that doesn't mean anything for Clyde Edwards-Helaire.
Xavier Worthy looks great running against grass and grass alone with no helmets and in a jersey. He's running against air. Yeah, he looks great, right? But we have yet to see him produce at this level. Yeah,
we saw him in college.
True. But let's say all these things happen, though. Clyde Edwards-Helaire has already proven he can't do anything with an opportunity.
But as a late round dart throw, as a spike week freak, you need three spike weeks from a Clyde Edwards-Helaire at the end of the season for him to be productive. I think there's a world where he can have 4 or 5 receptions.
I'd rather take a shot on Eric Gray like I did.
I respect it 100%. We can agree to disagree, and I respect you and your opinion. And I'm looking forward to the conversation later on.
If you're right, I'll say you're right.
Sing it from the mountaintops,
but the odds are 101, though.
I'll take those odds all day, every day. But yeah, man, MVP Jug, I like what you did with your lineup. Once again, roster construction wise, if you make the bet on the early quarterback, especially a volatile, rushing quarterback, you are drafting like he's going to be healthy the entire season. So having Bo Nix is unnecessary, or having Deshaun Watson, either or.
Well, what if Bo Nix outproduces expectations? We've seen rookie quarterbacks do this, so why not take a crack on him as your third?
But if he can outproduce expectations and you are drafting like he can outproduce Jalen Hurts, why would you waste a 42nd pick overall on Hurts when you are bullish on a guy who has got the ADP of 204?
He doesn't have to
get another position.
Hurts.
Just get another position.
He doesn't have to outproduce Hurts.
He's not going to outproduce Hurts. Nobody's.
So why would you draft him?
What about bye week? What about a Hurts injury? What if he outperforms his expectation and outperforms him 1 or 2 weeks fantasy wise?
What if Hurts gets hurt?
It's a very valid point. What if Hurts gets hurt? You're not drafting Hurts with a 42nd overall pick, expecting and drafting him like he's going to get hurt. Once again, it's early draft capital. That is a money round where he took him. There's a lot of other positions. So if you're going to make the gamble and bet on Jalen Hurts in this format, in this lineup, that means you have to attack every other position because there is a lot of wide receiver and running back upside there at the value he drafted him. Just historically, the way this tournament has worked, that's how it goes. If you're going to go elite quarterback, it should be 2 builds, but I could be wrong. It could be like we saw a season end 2 years ago where, 2 of the most prolific offenses didn't even play. That decided the fantasy football season where, Damar Hamlin almost died, where the Buffalo Bills and a lot has happened. But historically, based off of experience and, studying the lineups, if you're going to go this early, I don't hate it. I'm just saying personally, I don't think I would go and invest in a Jalen Hurts early and then go 3 quarterbacks. I don't care if it's Deshaun Watson or Bo Nix. If I'm high on Bo Nix, I'm perfectly fine passing.
You're going to hate my lineup because I went early with Mahomes. And
I don't hate it.
Quarterbacks.
I give this a B+. I like this lineup. I like everything he did. Just the roster construction for me is what took it from an A to a B+. Roster construction is super important.
What are you expecting out of a Bo Nix if you take him as your QB3? 1-2 weeks starting,
Nothing.
basically. Oh
If I'm
no,
taking,
I'm expecting 1 or 2 weeks starting. If I take Russell Wilson as my third quarterback, which I did, I'm not expecting him to start half the year, especially with Mahomes there. I'm
but the,
expecting 1 or 2 startable weeks. Just
but
like when you go with Clyde Edwards-Helaire late, you're taking him to get 2 or 3 starts out of him. That's
It
it.
wouldn't be the craziest thing for Bo Nix to outproduce, you know, Deshaun Watson and have 1 or 2 weeks that you can use.
I agree.
Yeah.
so if you guys, so this is an excellent point, and then I'll address your points. So if you look at 8 of the top 10 finishes last year, they only had 2 quarterbacks. 8 of the top 10 who placed in the money, right?
And how many of them had Puka Nakua and Kyron Williams that they got late? 8 of the top 10. I mean, I don't have.
I would say all 10 had either one or both. I would say
Yeah,
all, but there is value like that later on in the draft. You just have to take your shots on those values. We can't project and predict who's going to be that guy, but it's always the
that's the
late round
point.
flyers that change it, right? So
Yeah,
if just based off of roster construct, like I love the wide receivers. I think the wide receivers are spectacular. I love the correlation. I think it's. I just personally, as somebody who drafts here, and once again, we don't have to draft the same, and I don't expect us to draft the same. That's why these conversations are so awesome. Is because three quarterbacks is fine, but if you're going to make that elite investment, for me, it's not great. Billy says 3 QBs is fine, but not with an elite QB on the roster. These are guys who've been in the drafter street, but once again, you guys are not wrong. There's also a possibility where you guys are bang on.
I went 4 quarterbacks, but here's why. I took Richardson. Richardson's an injury risk. So I backed him up with Purdy. Then I took 2 late flyers on 2 deep sleepers. Justin Fields, who was like the 18th round, because QB6 2 years ago, second best rushing season all time if he gets to play. Let's say Richardson gets hurt. Fields could give me a lot of startable weeks. And then Drew Lock with I think of my last pick. I think he's going to end up the starter, and he throws a good deep ball. He's cleared up some rough edges in his game and thrown deep to Neighbors and Hyatt. I think there could be a few spike weeks there.
Yeah,
The last 2 were dart throws that I don't even know if they're going to start or not. But if they do, especially with Fields, I think they have upside.
after the 18th round, it's mostly dart throws anyway.
yeah, yeah. So you went Anthony Richardson, Brock Purdy, Justin Fields, Drew Lock as your 4 quarterbacks. Running back, you go Brees Hall, Travis Etienne, DeAndre Swift, Rico Dowdle, Eric Gray as your 5th one. Wide receiver, you go Nico Collins, Calvin Ridley, Jackson Smith and Jigba, Jerry Jeudy, Michael Williams, Michael Wilson, Rashad Bateman, Javon Baker. Tight end, you go Sam Laporta, TJ Hawkinson, Colby Parkinson. Greg, I know you guys are good friends, but I need you to bring the fire. How do you think he did?
I think he did well, except for quarterback. I don't like 4 quarterbacks with 2 of them not even starting. But again, he took them so late. What was his alternative there? Who were the other players taken in that 19, 20, 20, 18, 19, 20 rounds? I'm getting mixed up with Scott Fish where it's 22 rounds. But when you're going late, you go with people that you think may impact your lineup. And he's right. Anthony Richardson has the potential to be the top player, not just the top quarterback, the top player in fantasy football this year. He also has the potential to play 2.5 games and no more. I mean, he showed that last year. So I'm not thrilled with his quarterback room, but I think the rest of that lineup is solid. I give it a solid B plus. And the roster construction really, I think, is done well. I really do. Again,
I will say one thing.
yeah.
Anthony Richardson can play 2.5 games, and Justin Fields could be my QB1.
Yeah, but he's got to beat out Russell Wilson first, and I'm not sure that's going to happen.
There's a universe where that's
Wilson's got the inside track now, but if he doesn't play well, Fields will get in there.
But Wilson played well last year. That's the thing. Everybody thinks he dropped.
I watched him play last year. He was better than the first year where he was awful.
Yes,
but he's still shaky. I hate to
wasn't
say
he like
it, was,
quarterback 8 when he was benched in fantasy purposes?
tough.
he,
Yeah,
Yeah, but from a pure NFL perspective, I don't know if he could still play well enough to keep Fields off the field.
Yeah, well, Fields has never been a great passer, so
If I have to pick, yeah, I agree. Fields is a terrible passer, but if I'll agree with Scott here. If I had to pick between those two quarterbacks, I'd take Fields all day, every day. I don't think there's a need to have Russell Wilson. I think Justin Fields gives you much more upside, especially with that rushing room and those rushing threats. So hopefully, the
I'll take
Fields.
it in the 18th round.
Yeah, I think it's
yeah.
a good value. I don't hate Justin Fields.
What's your grade on me, Andrew? Fire away.
So I will say this, okay, and there's been a couple chats. Shout out to Quasi. He says I don't like the bye week fragility in that room. I mean, I think Rico Dowdle presents a lot of, great upside, especially with his efficiency. I think if him and Swift perform well on week 12, there's a chance, right? I love the Anthony Richardson value and pick. I even love the Brock Purdy pick more. Justin Fields would make sense. Drew Lock, I understand it. I just personally would never ever do that. Ever. Never in the history of ever. but I understand why you did it, and I understand your reasoning and your rationale for going for quarterbacks, especially when you're coming up with a quarterback who got injured. So I don't hate the way you did it, especially when you get the values that you got. Your running back room is spectacular. I love your running backs. I will say, week 12 is going to be tough, but there's a world where it can hit. Your wide receivers has a significant drop off. In my opinion, Mike Williams, yes, great player. If Mike Williams is healthy, I'll eat my words, right? But I don't think Mike Williams has a timetable and timeline on his return. He got hurt, not super early in the season. It was after week 4 or 5. I love Michael Wilson. Rashad Bateman, I think it's an okay pick. Javon Baker, I'll get some exposure there. Your tight end room is spectacular. I love your tight end room. I think when TJ Hawkinson comes back, he could very well fill your flex spot. I don't hate what you have. I generally do not hate what you have. I think it was a very sharp draft. I think you did really well, and I'm looking forward to seeing your future drafts here on Drafters and seeing what your takeaway from this draft was and this experience, and the advice from the community and Greg, and seeing what you do with your future lineups.
What grade do you give me? And by the way, Drafters gave me a nice bonus for my first deposit, so I will be drafting again. But what grade do you give me?
C+.
See, and I gave
I
you.
thought you said it was solid. That's a mediocre grade.
C's get degrees, brother.
Just be straight up. You
C's
admit how I like this, I like that, I like this, I like that, and then C plus.
If I hate the roster construction is very important. It's super important and super important. Roster construction means everything, right? It's the values that you're playing. I'm going to give you for your first draft, it's a B, but overall, if we're talking about overall how I would personally draft and what I like for your first draft, there's a lot of things that I like. There's a lot of things to work on. Nobody's perfect on the first draft.
Okay, I'm just saying you made it sound more positive.
Yeah, he did.
There's a lot of good to take away and get back to the
Scott, I agree. He never gives lower than a B. So for him to give you a C plus, that's mean. That's just mean.
I do. Bear fan Pete's here. He says I give him a B minus.
Right. But he was straightforward.
All right. I mean, I gave you an honest response. I said what I liked.
We're teasing you. Let's go. We're teasing you.
I'm messing with you.
All right. Let's look at Greg's lineup. He goes 3-5-9-3. Patrick Mahomes, Justin Herbert, Russell Wilson. Running back goes Bijan Robinson, Joe Mixon, Najee. I love your running back room. Blake Corum, Jaleel McLaughlin. That's spectacular. Wide receiver goes Deebo Samuel, Rashee Rice, Curtis Samuel, Demario Douglas, Darnell Mooney, Jalen McMillan, Jacob Cowing, Zay Jones, Khalif Raymond. Tight end, he goes Dalton Kincaid, Taysom Hill, and Cade Otton. Scott, you're up.
I really like this draft. Good roster construction here. I think I'm going to say B plus. And by the way, Billy Gableman, I see your comment. Thanks. It gives me an honesty. That's fine. But we also have Quasi saying, remember these are just draft day grades. Everybody loves grades. Like you'll get graded by a certain system. This gave me an A. This gave me a B. This says I'm going to finish in first place. That's all fun. It's not relevant. So, but it's all fun. But I like this roster construction a lot. I would just say the depth at wide receiver would prevent me from giving it an A. So I'm going to say B plus.
And I agree with that assessment. I always go stronger
I
at running.
resemble that remark.
No. I always focus on running backs because I'm old school stud running back. I'd much rather be strong in the running back room than the wide receiver room because I think there's more propensity for injury to running backs. So I think you got to be deeper.
I don't disagree with anything you guys said, and Billy said it perfectly. And shout out to Billy Gableman, one of the sharpest drafters minds on the planet. He says grading is simply based on construction. I agree wholeheartedly.
When you look back at what you've done after the draft, it's good that the drafters gave me a bonus. I put in 25, they gave me 50. That's 3 drafts. Because I'm already looking back at this draft. It's my first one on drafters and saying what I could have done differently. A lot of times in best ball, and these guys will know it, you want to get the hookup. And I don't have the hookup. Maybe I should have taken Michael Pittman Jr. I'm not that excited about Michael Pittman Jr., but to have him with Richardson,
Or Josh Downs.
would have made sense, or Josh Downs, or Adonai Mitchell, or Jelani Woods.
Yeah, so that's correlation and stacking. I've never heard it called as a hookup, but I might start calling it a hookup now.
Yeah,
I like
it's why I went with Rasheed Rice. I would have gone with Hollywood, but he was gone already.
Yeah, no, I like the correlation. I like the stack. I think you did really good here with your draft. And there's also the $2 mini, by the way, Scott. So with whatever money you have left,
on those.
Yeah, well, it's here. Let me
$2 mini best ball.
Yeah, so it's $2
slow and fast.
Yeah, there's a slow and fast. It's $25,000 to first. It's a $2 investment, $125,000 in total prizes.
Wow!
You get to max out.
I'll be drafting for days. I'll get nothing else done.
It's super fun. It's a great time. This one's $500,000 to first and $2.5 million in total prizes. And if you guys are tuning in, and you guys want to get in on the Drafters Fund, make sure you use promo code DISCO. It'll double your initial deposit. Up to $100. Back to Greg's lineup. I love the quarterback room. I understand the reason why you took Russell Wilson, but as I said before, and I'll say it again, especially when you reach on Patrick Mahomes a few picks, like 18 picks ahead in ADP, obviously get your guys. But if you make this investment based off of roster construction, there's no need for a Justin Herbert or a Russell Wilson. Take one or the other. This is just my advice. I could be wrong. There was a way where I'm wrong. I love your running back room. I think you got great values everywhere at the running back position. I like your wide receivers. I do think there's a significant drop off in terms of the tiers, but these guys are all, relatively good high ceiling plays. I think Pop Douglas is going to be phenomenal. I love Demario Douglas. I don't know if you guys know this, but go Pats, right? Darnell Mooney, love the value with Darnell Mooney. Love the pick. If he can do anything that Jordan Addison did, I love Darnell Mooney, especially as
a deep sleeper. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think Rasheed Rice, that situation, he's probably not going to get suspended. The NFL usually reacts immediately, and if they don't react immediately, it's usually a year after the fact where there's any suspension. So the value you got Rasheed Rice at is great, and I think when you bring in a Hollywood Brown and an Xavier Worthy, I don't think it takes away from a guy like Rasheed Rice, who as a PPR league and a PPR monster in those dink and dunks where the top off the defense is taken off. I think Rasheed Rice has got great upside this year and every year, and he was shown to be the most reliable, not just one of, but the most reliable receiver in Kansas City for the entire season last year. He was consistent throughout. So I love the Rasheed Rice pick. Curtis Samuel, I like the idea that he's going to marry the run and pass game, so he's going to have more touches. I love the experience he has with Joe Brady. I love what Joe Brady can do with Curtis Samuel. Demario Douglas is my wide receiver one for the New England Patriots. I think he's going to be really, really good. I like this draft. It's a B- for me, though.
Yeah, well, with Kansas City, this is the deepest wide receiver room that Mahomes has ever had. I'm more of a Jalen Polk fan than I am Demario Douglas. I don't know if Demario Douglas can stay healthy. That's one thing. I think Polk might actually be underrated there.
I think Polk had the best hands out of all the prospects in this year's combine. He doesn't drop anything, and I like Polk a lot as well. I have a lot.
I took the other rookie later on,
Javon Baker.
Yeah, Javon Baker's got some big play upside.
I agree. I agree. And there's a lot of wide receivers. I think the most reliable receiver that we can depend on in the New England Patriots receiver room is probably going to be Hunter Henry. I think he's going to be the most reliable, safest receiver there. And I know he's a tight end, but I think he's going to be the most reliable
You
one.
love to bring up all the guys that I'm like done with, and like I can't do them no more. Hunter Henry is like Clyde Edwards. Well, he's not quite the Clyde Edwards Hilaire, but we always hear about there was nobody there, and like Hunter Henry still wasn't doing much. It's Hunter Henry had like one good year with the Chargers years ago, and he's been overrated since.
He was a top 5 tight end until he got hurt, or top 10 tight end until he got hurt last year.
Disco, the problem is you got a rookie quarterback. Rookie quarterbacks tend to focus on.
Well, Brissett might start early though.
But Brissett, is he really an upgrade? Jacoby Brissett over
from Mac Jones. I'm an upgrade from Mac Jones. Jones
from Mac Jones, but I'm talking about the rookie they've got.
Oh, gotcha.
Well, Hunter Henry being top 10, it's like, yeah, but he was totally unreliable. So
I agree. In basketball, you definitely would probably mix in another 2 tight ends when you get a Hunter Henry, right?
Yeah.
So it's time for you guys to rip my draft apart. I go 3-6-8-3 with a super safe roster construction. I go Caleb Williams, Trevor Lawrence, and Kirk Cousins. I go with running backs Jonathan Taylor, Jalen Warren, Jerome Ford, Gus Bus, Tyler Algier, Damian Pierce. Wide receiver, I go Drake London, Stephon Diggs, Christian Kirk, Chris Godwin, Rome Odunze, Marvin Mims, Greg Dortch, Malik Washington. Tight end, I go Kyle Pitts, Isaiah Likely, and Michael Mayer. Who wants to go first?
I'll go first. I really like what you did there. I think it was a solid draft. I give you an F. Doing just like he did to me. Okay. Actually, I'm going to give it a B minus. I'll say. You're talking about you don't want their third quarterback, and you did that.
Sorry. So to clarify, the third quarterback, the only reason why I don't like 3 quarterbacks is if you spend the early draft capital on an elite quarterback, like a Jalen Hurts, like a Patrick Mahomes, like a Josh Allen, like those elite quarterbacks. So I went quarterback relatively late with Caleb Williams, Trevor Lawrence, and Kirk Cousins.
Right.
Yeah.
I think you went a little bit early on Drake London when there's some more proven wide receivers that were still out there. I know everybody's hot on London and it's an aggressive pick, but he's still got to show he can do it at that level. But I understand the thought process. You got to be aggressive in a big field like this.
Yeah.
So I do understand that. You also went in on Kyle Pitts. You went heavy in on Atlanta. So if Atlanta performs well, this team is going to perform well. I think you're a little thin at running back, so I'll give it a B minus.
I appreciate that. Somebody brought it to my attention earlier today that Atlanta has the 3rd easiest strength of schedule this season. So I'm kind of a little bit more bullish on Atlanta than I was before.
All right. I'm sorry. No disrespect to whoever told you that. Strength of schedule is all based on last year.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah,
you're right.
And going to your quarterbacks, you know me, I'm not a big Caleb Williams fan.
I know this.
I think for a warm weather quarterback to go to the pros and have to try to play outdoors in November and December in Chicago is a lot to ask. It's a whole lot to ask. Now, he's got a good supporting cast around him, and that's good, but we have to see him. There's a huge difference between playing college quarterback and playing pro quarterback. The windows, you and I discussed this before. So I'm not a real big fan of the Caleb Williams pick, but I think you saved it with Trevor and Cousins. If you were going 2 quarterback, I think those 2 are the 2 you should have had. I think both of them have the capability of 4,000 to 4,500 yards and 30 touchdowns. Williams probably not going to give you more than 3 starts all year, I don't think, with those other 2 guys here. Now, that's assuming that Kirk Cousins is healthy.
Williams' offense is loaded, though. When it gets cold there, he can let the veterans and all the other guys make plays for him.
Yeah, but the problem is rookie quarterbacks traditionally take C.J. Stroud out of the picture, focus on one receiver. They just don't
But
read the
he
field.
can't do that. He's got DJ Moore and he's got Keenan Allen and he's got Roma Dunze and he's got Swift out of the backfield.
And
Hey,
Cole
man.
Kmet.
You
I
can't
know,
lock on one guy. There's just too many.
but they've done it for years, Scott. Go back and look at every rookie quarterback you've ever watched before Stroud. Even Dan Marino did not have a great rookie year. And so I just think with Kirk Cousins and with Trey Lawrence, you've got your quarterback position right there locked up.
I don't think with that offense, with all due respect, Greg, there's no way you can focus on one receiver because if DJ Moore ain't open, Keenan Allen's got single coverage. So I can't see that happening.
So do you think he's going to have 2,000-yard receivers? You think he's going to throw for 4,000?
I think he can get close.
Yeah, I don't think he'll be anywhere close.
I think the offense is that loaded.
It is.
May I say one thing that I like about Caleb Williams in his situation in Chicago?
Sure.
When they get close to the goal line, I don't project them or anticipate them running the ball. And if they do, it's not going to be good.
It'll be Roshan.
It could be, but that offensive line is still, doo-doo. It's not great, right? And I don't think they're going to bully anybody off the blocks. And I don't
But you're assuming they're going to get close.
Should they? Well, with the new
that offense is loaded though, and DeAndre Swift,
the offense
is third running back. He's being
the offense is loaded as skill positions. I agree.
But what I'm saying, if they get into the red zone or close to the red zone, I think Caleb Williams more often than not is going to be throwing a touchdown or personally running it himself with the read option play.
He can flare it out to DeAndre Swift.
The touchdown upside in the red zone.
If you get him in space, he's going to pay a big
role.
And
Swift can also be a weapon there. Yeah, 100%.
What are you projecting for Caleb
year.
Williams in terms of yards, passing touchdowns, and rushing touchdowns?
Me personally?
Yeah.
I have him projected for 3,400 passing yards, and I have him projected for 28 passing touchdowns this season.
Okay, and rushing?
3.
3 touchdowns rushing, how many yards?
Rushing yards, I have him under 250.
Oh, okay, so you don't have him running a lot.
No, I have him taking it in the read option in the red zone. I don't have him running the ball a heck of a lot. I think he's going to run to throw the ball. He has way too many weapons to be taking any unnecessary hits and shots. He's got some spectacular weapons. I mean, even Cole Kmet is a great tight end. I think a lot of people are sleeping on him. I am personally higher on Jaden Daniels this season, but like in terms of this year as well, I'm not. Oh, look, Billy Gabham has him projected for 3,500 yards and 25 TDs. Great minds.
Yeah. My point is that you slammed Scott and others for having 3 quarterbacks when they went high on a quarterback, right?
Yeah.
You've got 3 quarterbacks, 2 of which who are going to outperform by your own projections, your top quarterback. You got Kirk Cousins and Lawrence who are going to outperform Caleb Williams. Why go with 3? Why not just go with those?
Because maybe he's not just going by straight projections. If Williams fails, what if Lawrence finally has his best year and Cousins has a great year?
Well, that's what I'm saying is I think that Cousins and Lawrence
can't go by firm projections. Stick to the numbers.
Billy says Disco shouldn't have taken a third quarterback, and I did have that hesitancy when I took Trevor Lawrence, but I thought the value was too good, and I prioritized correlation over logic, and
No, I think you should have taken Trevor Lawrence. I think you should have taken Kirk Cousins. I think you should have taken somebody else when you took Caleb Williams. That's what I think.
I think that the key here is that we all know that Greg is a big Lions fan.
Absolutely.
Caleb Williams is the future of the division, and he doesn't.
He's not. No, he's not.
He fears the Bears.
Jamil Gibbs is the future of that division.
Not running the back. No, running back is he'll not for long. That definitely stands for the running back position as well. I mean, I wish him the best. I think Jahmyr Gibbs is one of the most exciting players in football, but he already has injury, situations right now. He's got like a tendonitis in one of his ankles or knees. He's not fully healthy. There was some articles, but I mean, he also has.
I'm not worried about a guy not being healthy in July.
Yeah, this is true. This is true. Guys, what a spectacular show! I had a blast. I feel like I've known you forever, Scott. Greg, I've known you for 4 months. You know I love you to pieces. You're one of my favorite human beings on the planet, and thank you guys so much for blessing my channel and my community with this awesome draft and this awesome back and forth. Is there anything you guys want to say to the community, the people watching, before we say bye? Once again, guys, thank you so much for blessing us with.
You said Billy finished high last year.
Billy is one of the drafters' goats.
Yeah.
Billy,
So where did he finish last year?
Billy, where'd you finish last year, bud? What's your highest placement last year, and how much money did you make?
That's exactly what I want to know, because I want Scott to know you don't have to win it all to
Yeah,
get paid.
yeah.
That's true. I know this, but thanks for everybody, guys. Thanks for having me. This was a lot of fun, and I really appreciate everybody that watched and commented, etc. And follow me at Scotty the King on X/Twitter.
Whoa!
And
35K.
Wow,
Billy won 35K with 7th place finish. Good job, Billy.
I could use that. I'll shoot for that. Follow me at Scotty the King on social media, rotoballer.com, Seahawks.com every week. Go to the news page, the Fantasy Insider tab. Also, sportsline.com. May have some stuff coming up at The Athletic and Sirius XM Fantasy Sports Radio every Sunday, 3 to 5 Eastern.
Hardest working man in fantasy sports, Mr. Scott the King Engel.
Thank you.
And hit him up and convince him to get to the expo so we can see the karaoke. If nothing else, that's worth the ticket.
Amazing.
Thank you.
Amazing, y'all. Greg, anything you'd like to say to the audience before you say bye, where they can find you and on all socials and YouTube?
Gregory L. Kellogg, you can come to my show Thursday nights. It's right when Discos is playing, unfortunately, but we're every Thursday night, and you can watch us after hours. It's okay. You can watch Disco live because he gives stuff away and I don't. And then come watch us after. We're okay with that. If you see me at the expo, come up to me and talk to me. We love to talk to fantasy guys. Scott's the same way. Don't ever think that somebody's too big for you to talk to. Well, I'm kind of big, but you know what I mean. You know what I mean. We love
Go
to talk
up to him and tell him that Caleb Williams is going to throw 40 touchdown passes.
Oh, yeah. Please tell me
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
I love it, guys. Guys, do me a favor. Head over to Buy Bengals stream right now. Everybody that's in the chat that's still here, head over to Buy Bengals stream. Put hashtag Disco Rate. I really want to see the.
Put a link to it if you've got it in your chat.
I'll just
Try
buy
to.
you Bengal. BAYOU Bengal. Put hashtag Disco Raid. Guys, it's a really fun, spectacular scene that he does there. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Thank you guys for blessing me with your presence once again. Until next time, which is tomorrow night at 7 p.m. Eastern time, you guys have a great night. Peace and love. Bye now.